Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. So my name is Mary Ruel, and I am so excited to welcome you to the second Voices of Vision hosted by the 43North Foundation. Tonight is all about sharing the Foundation's vision for supercharging entrepreneurship in Buffalo and the community, and look at the community that came out tonight, that is working to make this happen. Yeah, give that another round of applause. Absolutely. Before we officially get started, I want to share a bit about why this conversation matters. I am proud to call myself a Buffalo boomerang. How many of you in this room are also Buffalo boomerangs? That's a lot. Look around. I was raised here in Western New York. I left to explore opportunities elsewhere, and I ultimately chose to come back not just to be near family, but to help shape a future where people don't have to leave Buffalo to reach their full potential. So my daughter is 1.5 years old, and when I think about the kind of Buffalo I want her to grow up in, I imagine a region where she and her entire generation can dream big without needing to leave home. A place that sparks ambition, provides the tools to pursue it, and surrounds you with a community that genuinely wants you to succeed. So tonight, you're going to hear about how that future is already being built by people and plans already in motion, and why this moment isn't just exciting, it's defining. We are standing at the edge of transformation. As the Director of Strategic Talent Initiatives at Tech Buffalo, I am privileged to be a part of the impactful work with students, career changers, emerging professionals, and experienced leaders all across the region, people at every stage in their career journey, all asking the same question: can I build a career and a life here in Buffalo? And what you'll hear over this next hour points to a resounding yes. You'll hear about the bold work underway at the 43North Foundation, the launch of Radial Ventures, Buffalo's first venture studio, and the ecosystem initiatives being built at UB and M&T to ensure that Buffalo is a community where talent thrives, businesses scale, and the next generation of builders and founders, hopefully in Miss Leah, choose to stay and lead. But to understand where we're going, we of course need to understand where we came from and who had the vision to capture a lightning strike moment and turn it into lasting light for Western New York. It is my pleasure to introduce two of those visionaries, Tom Wiley, publisher of the Buffalo News for the next 24 hours, and Bill Maggio, board chairman of the 43North Foundation. Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
What are you doing up here? We got to start by giving a round of applause to Tom Wiley, but don't applaud yet, for sponsoring and getting behind this event. It's very, very important. And for all of you, this is an amazing turnout of support for us. Give yourselves a round of applause. Tom has remarks. I don't. So anybody who knows and listens to me speak, I like to ad-lib and make a fool of myself, but there's a couple things I want to do. Our new board chair of 43North is here, Pete Grum. Let's give him a round of applause. Finally got some normal leadership over there. Getting rid of Jordy, American, myself. Listen, you guys didn't come here to hear me speak today, so my remarks are going to be very brief. We all know about 43North and its success in the community. You know, we've exposed Buffalo to thousands and thousands of companies through our application process. It's really remarkable. We've worked with so many people in this room to bring almost $1 billion of venture funding to support our startup ecosystem. There's 74 companies that have won our competition, that have created thousands of jobs, and most of them are located right here in Western New York. We have a couple of unicorns that we can talk about that weren't here 2 years ago in ACV and Odoo, and their decision to locate their headquarters here in Buffalo.
Come on.
My Ed McMahon over here.
That's right.
Just sit down and get the whole thing. I just need some vodka. You know, obviously the formation of the foundation, what a wonderful accomplishment that is. But I think the greatest thing that has happened is this awareness. And I saw something come from Pete Petrella today about young leaders, which is really remarkable, this event that you guys are hosting. It's inspiring to see that happen. But to change the perception of what we need to do to be successful in Western New York, and that is to focus on the next generation of leaders. We've really struggled to do that. And anyone who knows me well knows that I got a real problem with the status quo in Buffalo. I think that that's been a problem, and there are a lot of people who think sustaining the status quo is the right thing to do for Buffalo. And that happens when you go through decades of economic challenges. You get this scarcity sort of mentality. And I get it, I understand it, but we have led at 43 North, and I know a lot of other organizations in Buffalo from a perspective of abundance, and that's what we do. There were a lot of naysayers when we started 43 North, and they were wrong. We didn't fail like they thought we would. And I know there are a lot of naysayers about what the foundation's focus is. And I'm here to tell you we're not going to fail. There's no freaking way that's going to happen. Sarah's going to talk a bit about the foundation's focus, but it's not to recruit companies to Buffalo. It's to create companies right here in Buffalo. That's Dan's job at the Venture Studio. We're going to focus a lot on storytelling. We're going to be really aggressive about that. We're going to focus a lot on talent. And we're going to focus on bringing the corporate community into the conversation. It's really important that we do that. So I'm excited for you to learn tonight more about that. But in closing, I just want to say, and it's very humbling, and I'm very grateful to be a part of this event tonight. You are all the future leaders of this community. You are our future, and I will do anything I can to support you, and I assure you the Foundation's mission will be laser focused on that. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you and
Thanks, Bill.
listen to what you have to say.
Good. Well, so welcome everybody. Nice to see a full house and our second Voices of Vision. There are several more coming. So what I've noticed tonight is that about, I don't know, maybe 20-25% are wearing the lightning strike pin. I'll talk about it in just a second. But what's great about that is that there's many in this room that were not here for the first one and getting exposed to this concept. And I will tell you that what came out of our first one that was sponsored by Aileron, Scott's down here and Pete's down here, is this idea that this generation of leadership is eager and open and, dare I say, motivated to activate the next generation of leaders in any way they can. So while you're here tonight, if you see people and don't know them, make that connection. That's the point of the cocktail party afterwards, is to have this conversation and to have you all activate those. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you are a rising leader and you're interested in how you can get involved, that there are plenty of people who will help you do that. So I do want to say thanks to the sponsors and the people who helped conceive of the ideas of how we use the Buffalo News platform. We're live streaming this evening. We have media assets that are pushed into getting this out for the next month. Yes, there's probably 150, 170 people in the room tonight. There's another 500,000 we're going to push this out to so that people actually understand what's really happening and don't have to be here to opt into that. I do want to lean in slightly to the lightning strike moment. It's a phrase Bill coined at one of the 43 North presentations. I think it's aptly named because it actually is not as rare as you think, but when it happens, it is a concentration of energy, and it is a really, really startling moment in time, and I think we need to recognize that we need as many of those as we can, not just the unicorns, but developing out our tech sector, developing out our entrepreneurism, making connections between these generations of leaders so that we can keep this momentum going. My picture that was up there showed my 3 kids. I will say I'm a little less aspirational on keeping all 3 of them in Buffalo because one's at Kaleida, one's at People Inc., and one's at Odoo. And so all 3 are here. And so I want to thank this community for building what they built in the 17 years when I was gone and came back, and those kind of opportunities are there for the 20-somethings right now. So I can speak to, maybe we'll be even a better place in 20 years from now. So Bill, my hat's off to you and what you've accomplished at 43 North and the Foundation. I'm proud to have you guys sponsor tonight, and I'm eager to hear what your crew has to tell us and how we hand it off to the next generation.
So, Sarah, let's go. Yeah. Let's get Sarah Ripa out here. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Ripa.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Hello. Good evening. Oh my gosh, there are people standing in the wings. This is such an amazing audience here tonight. I'm so excited to host the discussion here. My name is Sarah Tanbakuchi-Ripa. I am the CEO of the 43North Foundation. And before we get into the panel, I just have some brief opening remarks. And you can see up there, that's my husband, Matt. And I do this work for my 9-month-old twins who are there in their little Yoda jackets because, like Mary was talking about, I believe that this is the place where they are going to have an amazing career and amazing life. And I'm so thrilled to be here this evening. So Tom talked about lightning strike moments. And the question is, how do you turn those lightning strike moments into momentum? And not just momentum, but sustained momentum, accelerated momentum. And that really is what the 43North Foundation is designed to do. Our mission is to make sure the Western New York tech ecosystem, or startup ecosystem, which so many of you have spent years nurturing and building, is ambitious, equitable, and built to last for generations. I mean, that is an amazing, powerful mission. And I'm not just saying that because I lead the organization, right? But think about that. Think about that. And Bill touched on this a little bit, but what makes the 43North Foundation so unique, we are a separate, independent entity, but we have the 43North brand because we owe our existence to the success of the 43North competition, the Accelerator program led by Colleen and her incredible team, and ACV. Yes, that's a great cheer. And Dan's going to touch on the ACV story, but when ACV went public as the first billion-dollar unicorn, and as Bill mentioned, there are others, that gave us the opportunity to form a one-of-a-kind foundation that will enable us to put those proceeds back into the startup ecosystem. And the question was, what was the best way? How do we think about putting those proceeds back into the community? And so we spent a lot of time studying other ecosystems. Salt Lake City, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Chicago, you name them. You can see some of them up here on the screen. And we asked the question, what are the elements of success consistent across every ecosystem that we've studied? And we boiled it down to 4. What we found in every ecosystem was that those ecosystems invested deeply in their talent, element 1. All the way back, starting to elementary school through college, because they knew they needed the STEM and entrepreneurial talent to found and be working in startups and companies. So startups, element 2, when we looked at these ecosystems, we saw a thriving startup scene, constantly creating companies, startups, and those startups scaled into mature companies, and that's element 3. And those mature companies cared deeply about the ecosystem, engaged in the startup ecosystem, and created more jobs and opportunities for that talent. And it also created a pipeline of founders that created more companies. And then finally, all of those assets, everything that supported the ecosystem, was stitched together by element 4, a storytelling engine that was so loud, so relentless, just constantly championing that ecosystem that there was no doubt in anyone's mind why that ecosystem was successful and what that ecosystem brought from an unfair competitive advantage perspective. And those 4 elements formed a flywheel, a virtuous flywheel that accelerated momentum for each of those ecosystems. So he said we were going to take these elements, this studying that we did of the other ecosystems, and have it inform the investment priorities of the 43North Foundation. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking to support things like the best talent identification and development system for tech talent, K through 12, and college talent retention, and do that in collaboration with partners like Tech Buffalo. That's the first thing. Number 2, we are supporting and forming, Bill talked about this, venture studio, Radial Ventures, to make sure we are starting more startups here, a company that creates startups here in Buffalo. Third, we're investing in corporate connectivity, an initiative that will help more established companies engage meaningfully in the startup ecosystem. And fourth, investing in storytelling. Now, of course, it's really important to note we cannot do this work alone. It takes a village. And so many of you have been engaged from day one and will continue to stay engaged. And that is why I'm so excited to host this panel tonight, bringing forth 3 incredible leaders who have been working in our ecosystem, care deeply about our ecosystem, and are doing work aligned to these elements. So please join me in welcoming Jesana Gadley from M&T Tech. Come on out, Jesana. Dan Magnuszewski from Radial Ventures. And in Buffalo for all of 3 weeks, but one of Buffalo's biggest fans, Lauren Washington from the UV Cultivator. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Tonight we'll be hosting a conversation where I am confident if you are new to the ecosystem, you are going to leave excited with ways to engage. And if you're already engaged in our ecosystem, you're going to understand just how serious we are about acceleration. All right, let's get started. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Good, good. All right, we're going to cover things tonight like career path, how'd you get where you are today, what you're doing within the ecosystem, the impact you're having, and then we are going to talk a little bit about storytelling. So I'm going to dive right in, and Dan, we're going to start with you. So we say that you are the flywheel in action.
Okay.
No pressure.
All right.
But, you know, Dan, you were actually, Dan started his career at M&T. You're going to tell the story, but, you know, your journey with ACV, and now you learned so much through that experience. You're giving back through Radial Ventures. Talk to us about how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So, yeah, interesting story. Could be a lot longer. We can go to the bar and discuss it more afterwards if someone's interested. But, yeah, I mean, the long and short, I grew up here in Buffalo, went to Sweet Home High School, and had the opportunity while I was in school there, you know, it was 97 to 2001, so kind of first wave of the dot-com boom. And fortunately, my school had web development classes, which is basically learning HTML, making those really crappy HTML web pages with visitor counters and spinning GIFs and stuff that looked terrible. But that was really my first introduction to you know, tech and building things on the internet, and really the internet itself. So from there, went to the University of Buffalo, studied computer science, got really involved with the local tech community and different user groups we had going there at the time. And as I was coming out of high school and going into college, as I was saying, I was fortunate to be able to have some of these opportunities. The M&T thing was interesting because I was in a Cisco Network Academy class my senior year, and there was a rumor going around from this one kid that M&T in their Network Operations Center had internships and they would accept high school students. And I had sent a ton of different, you know, emails out, or not even emails. I was like formally trying to apply to all these different tech companies for an internship. Some I heard back like 10 months later that they weren't hiring interns, which was awesome. And, but had to go and find the phone number, the personal phone number of one of the hiring managers that was at the M&T Commerce Drive group, and somehow got that number and started calling his personal number. And fortunately, he replied and like got in and got an internship. So did it through that summer, and they invited me back to kind of keep working during college. So did that, and that was like a nice introduction to kind of corporate life. And you know, did that through school, and but you know, not necessarily a big company guy, and started looking at other alternatives in terms of earlier stage startups, and joined Synacor, which, you know, in the 2000s, late 2000s, was, you know, one of Buffalo's successful startups, and growing quickly. I learned a ton. You know, I was employee, I think maybe 100. Saw it grow and scale. I saw things that went well. I saw things that went very wrong, and, you know, everything in between. And it was a great introduction into scaling companies, and you know, learned a lot from there. But still, you know, wanted to go and, you know, start my own company and work at smaller companies. And left there to do a startup. very interesting experience, learned a ton with another buddy of mine. That ended up going 6 months, and then I was out consulting and kind of being a technical co-founder for hire for a lot of different people who had ideas and some capital, but no product person to understand what we needed to build and then go and build it. So I was doing that for a while, got really good exposure, and then kind of career pivoted into this opportunity where Jordy Levy, Ron Schreiber were putting together this incubator called Z80 Labs. And prior to that, doing a bunch, traveling across upstate, trying to see what other communities were doing from an accelerator standpoint, from just helping get startups going. And so for me, it was kind of a natural career progression to go into that. And it was great. Our goal was really put a flag in the ground and say, for people who want to build tech companies here in Buffalo, this is the place to go. We're going to bring in the top talent, the best VCs from all over the country, all over the world are going to come in. You're going to get this access. And, let's see what happens, right? And so did that for a bunch of years. We brought in a bunch of companies. We had companies, people that moved back. We retained people who were looking to move out. So, really great learning experience. Around this time was really a pivotal time in the startup community, as we were getting things like Buffalo Open Coffee Club going, Startup Weekend. This was all kind of the 2010 to 2012 timeframe. And it was really a grassroots effort that we were trying to get stuff moving. We didn't have the government programs. We didn't have a lot of the stuff going on. And so it was really just people saying, we want to live here. We like this place. And we don't give a shit if no one else is going to do anything. We're just going to go do it. And really not asking for permission to just get shit done. So did that, and eventually, got a little tired of just investing and telling people what they should be doing. And, I wanted to get back to building startups, building companies, building products. And around that time, I met founder Joe Neiman, who actually applied to the incubator and just kind of ran him through the program. He's like, I've worked in a used car dealership. I've never worked at a tech company. I've never built a tech company. I've never built a product, but I have this idea. And so we were able to put a bunch of people around it, get it going, validate it, and it was like, okay, this is something we should go in and pursue. And so left Z80. We went full time on that. I had a 1-year-old at the time. We sold my nice house that we had bought, and we thought we were like, okay, everything's going well. And told my wife one day, like, I don't think I'm gonna have a job. I'm gonna go do this thing. I'm not gonna have any money. We gotta go sell it and move on. So
how did that go?
What's that?
How did that go?
It went surprisingly well. I think she's used to enough of my antics at this point. And then we were probably married for long enough at that point. So it went easier than it probably should have. But yeah, it was one of those things. But also the beauty of Buffalo, I always joke, like I had to go do that and sell my really nice house, and then I had to downscale to a 1,500 square foot 4-bedroom house in Tonawanda. So it wasn't the worst thing. But so that was great. So got ACV going, and we really went through the process of trying to validate the idea, get it going, build the team here. Even initially raising capital, we raised $1 million, and that was one of the bigger amounts at that time. And so grew ACV, learned a ton. Some of my proudest stuff that we did there was really growing stuff in Buffalo that, historically it was like, you got to move to New York, you got to move to Austin, you got to move to wherever, Silicon Valley. And when people tell me I should be doing stuff, it's a good indication that I'm not going to fully listen to it and do what they tell me to do. Mm-hmm. So it was great validation that we could do it here. It validated what we were doing at Z80. And obviously, we grew ACV to be a big company. We went public. I love creating big companies. I don't like working at big companies, which is kind of a theme. So left ACV a little after the IPO and went back to school for machine learning for a little bit, and that was great. Did a little stint with a fast-growing startup called Foundry Digital out of Rochester. Did that for a while, and then really looked at, I have an opportunity to go do stuff. What should I be spending my time on? And I could go create another company, or this idea of a venture studio is something, Eric and I have been talking about since Z80 days and some of the pitfalls of the accelerated model. So,
well, and I don't want you to give too much
I won't say
about
too much.
Radial
We'll save it.
Ventures, but so okay, but this you
Yes.
can see why we call him the flywheel in action.
Yes.
So, but Jesana, you're also born and raised in Buffalo, and you were team member, I think number 4 maybe, at a really important asset within the community called the Tech Academy. So share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so my name is Jesana Gadley. As Sarah mentioned, Buffalo, born and raised. I'm a proud Buffalo Public School graduate. I went to Frederick Law Olmsted, where I got my high school degree. But when I think about like my career now, what I'm doing, it's very much full circle, as I'm now at M&T for about 3.5 years. And one of my earliest childhood memories is of being at Westminster Community Charter School, an affiliate school of M&T's, and they were sponsors of our school plays. Like, this was the first time I ever seen kids that looked like me putting on a full-scale production, and it was Cinderella. I was 8. It was perfect. But as I think about my career progressing and going to high school at Olmsted around the same time that Say Yes Buffalo was really launching, so I was the 5th graduating class of Frederick Law Olmsted, 5th graduating class of Say Yes Scholars, and so we've been able to experience the growth of the organization and have direct inflections in my own career, in my life, that I give a lot of tribute and kudos to Say Yes for investing in me. So when I think about how I approach the college and career search, or thinking beyond the scholarship that they were providing me, but thinking about like, what did I want to do in college, and what things did I want to experience, and how could I set myself up in a way that was going to put me on the best path forward. A lot of those conversations, they were starting with us as sophomores, juniors, seniors in high school. And so even when I moved on from there and went into college and started thinking about internships, I had Say Yes right there in my corner, championing me to think about ways I could be engaging with employers. And what's funny about these experiences is that I interned twice, and both of those internships will go on to keep me on well past the time that they were anticipating on keeping me, which is great for both of us. And so my second internship there is actually what kickstarted my career in workforce development, because what was only meant to be a summer turned into 2 semesters, my graduate program, and then also full-time employment with them thereafter. But we were here in Western New York helping to reduce the deficit of educators in Buffalo public and charter schools. And so as I mentioned, I'm a Buffalo graduate. I love Buffalo. My parents are Buffalo-based as well, and so ways that we can strengthen, fortify, and support kids that look like me in my community, but also my peers and others, is something that immediately stuck with me. And so when the time came to think about things beyond what I was doing there, finding a new challenge, hearing about this budding tech hub in Western New York, and M&T's intentions to do so from an intentional standpoint, bringing together more Western New Yorkers, doing so in a way that was going to not only change their lives, support the holistic industry, and then bring other employers along. This was something I had to get involved with. I'm just a naturally over-involved person. It's a thing in all my life. And so that's how I landed in tech. I didn't necessarily seek out technology. I sought out ways to improve my community, and this was the next best thing to do that with a company and organization that had belief in me to do so, number one, but also, 2, the confidence to do it in a way that they were not scared of. And so the Tech Academy being the perfect place to do this, kind of startup-esque. I do a lot of ambiguous things, and was able to really champion this work. And so now we have a full suite of programs supporting youth and young adults as they're thinking about what they can and cannot do, where they want to take their careers. Those collegiate students, so I know what I want, I just need help getting there, internships, post-collegiate programs, and then also folks who are well into their careers, but thinking about ways that tech can enhance that, so new skills, or pivoting into this industry entirely. It's very nice and affirming to be where I am, where I'm from, doing this work for the broader Western New York community. And so for me, it was always about intentionality. How can we get folks there, and how can we bring our holistic community on this journey with us?
Yeah, high school exposure, internships, all the
Precisely.
things, and you're going to spend even more time talking to us about the investments in talent. So, and Lauren, you've been here 3 weeks. You were actually 2014 43North winner, boomeranged back around, and you're calling this a bit of a homecoming, which we're so thrilled that you joined us on stage. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, of course. So I'm from New York City originally, but fun fact is that my grandmother was actually born here in Buffalo, so I do have that Buffalo family connection. Out of college, I ended up actually starting as a teacher in Teach for America, which I think there's actually a lot of parallels between teaching and entrepreneurship. And then I ended up at InStyle magazine, and I was really excited to work on the magazine side, but the only opportunity they had open happened to be on digital. And I think similar to what you were saying, I wasn't looking for a job in tech, I just wanted to be a part of sort of that media world, but it changed the whole trajectory of my life, really. And I really understood that there were opportunities in technology. I mean, this was 20 years ago where Facebook was brand new and InStyle ended up creating the first mobile app that a magazine ever had, and I was a part of that. And so I was able to see this growth and understand what it really meant and the larger impact. That ended up leading to me becoming the director at an agency where we were pulling big data and insights for over 100 global companies around the world, again, at the very early stages of that. But then I think there's an opportunity here to start automating some of this. I ran a team of 10 people who had to pull this out and automatically and manually create those insights, and that led to my idea Keep Up, which ended up winning the 43North competition in that first cohort. We had launched, and then 2 months later, we won 43North. So I was kind of thrown into this whole startup world, had no idea what I was really getting into, but ended up absolutely loving it. And Buffalo was the genesis of that. I don't know that I would still be here if I hadn't won that 43North competition and hadn't been exposed in that way. That led me to starting my second company, which is called Black Women Talk Tech. We grew to be the largest conference for Black women tech founders, expanded that into Black Men Talk Tech and a nonprofit. And then that led me to my company Funder, where we're creating insights for venture capital. So how can we create more insights, a better process, and more returns for venture capital firms. And so that all sort of led me back to Buffalo, back to UB. I've come back to 43North a few times, both as an alumni and as a semifinalist judge. And then the last 2 years, I've been working as an entrepreneur in residence at the University of Buffalo Cultivator, which has then led to the position that I'm in now. So it truly boomerang. I mean, there's been so many touch points along the way where Buffalo has been a huge, important part of my journey. And so when you say I am a boomerang and I'm a huge Buffalo fan, that is absolutely true.
Well, we're so thrilled you're back. And I think what you can see here with the folks on the stage, there is no one profile or one path into starting a company or working in tech. So thank you for sharing that. Dan, I'm going to go back to you because I want to circle back to Radial Ventures. And of course, this is one of the 4 key pillars of the 43North Foundation. And I want you to share more about that and how you can engage. But I want you to give us the elevator pitch. And Dan is absolutely correct. You can talk to him at the bar afterwards because he will talk about this for the remainder of our time together. So share with us high level what's going on. It's an awesome team you've built. You're doing great work.
Yep. So, yeah, elevator pitch for Radial Ventures. So we are a venture studio, which is not, I guess, it's a bit of a fuzzy term. There's a lot of people claiming to be venture studios and different flavors of it. But I feel that, really what we're looking to do is really the most pure version of it. And really what that is we're a company that is funded to take ideas, have a proven team behind it, people who have been building and scaling and starting companies for a long time and have done it, have the playbook, and be able to put those ideas through a scientific process to where we can create, launch new companies that are somewhat de-risked or de-risked to a good amount, but really be able to create them a lot faster and have a much better foundation than other companies that are being founded by first-time founders, who are figuring things out. I was there, I get it, but you spend a lot of time, a lot of money, just trying to navigate your way and not make certain mistakes, you know. And so really what we're trying to bring is a process where ideas can come from people in the community, people who may be working in different industries. They have an idea, they want to see this thing happen, but they've never built a tech product, they've never done, and they need that guidance. So for us, it's really how do we take these ideas, really vet the best ideas. We can only work on so many things, and right now that's not that many in parallel. But how do we take those ideas and just make sure we're working on the best thing that has the biggest opportunity for success, and then really just put a team of proven builders and get it to market, get it going, pull and build that team that's going to go run it long term. Our goal is not that we're going to go build these companies and have them sit in our studio and our space for a couple of years. The goal is how do we quickly validate that what we're solving is a real problem. We've identified the customers, we know how to go to market, we're selling. Now let's build that team. And that's where we can find people in the community that have experience scaling and building companies. This is an opportunity where we can go out and find people who may have left Buffalo and have gone and done this in other cities and are looking to come back, or people who have never been to Buffalo, but we have such interesting opportunities that they want to come and run this and be part of what we're doing. So at the end of the day, that's our goal, is how do we just go and create more and more companies, and not, while we've built all these other programs, and it's great, for us, we're not going to sit and wait and hope that the right person meets the other person at a meetup, and then they figure out how to get it going and decide to quit their job and go build it. We're going to take the idea and we're say, okay, we're going to take the reins and we're going to ride the horse. So that's kind of where how we're positioned.
Accelerating momentum.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Lauren, so the UB Cultivator also supports founders and entrepreneurs, and you've been an entrepreneur in residence there for a couple years now, for the past 2 years, and you'll be leading the program. And UB is such an important part of the ecosystem. Can you share with us, it's the flagship university of the SUNY system. This is a broad question, but what role do you see UB playing in Buffalo's ecosystem?
Yeah, I've loved my time as an entrepreneur in residence over the last couple of years, and we work with companies who are at the earliest stage, anywhere from idea to some have early revenue. We give them mentorship, space in our downtown office, and funding up to $100,000. And so I think that's the general idea of the accelerator, but there are a couple of things that make it really special and unique to other accelerators that I've seen. I think first is the individualized approach. So we match them with entrepreneurs in residence and staff members and work with them every single week towards their goals, not only towards the pitch and helping them figure out how to pitch this and how to do customer discovery and really validate their idea. But then after they go through the pitch and win the $100,000, we also work with them in terms of building the business and really rolling our sleeves up and getting deep into how do you bring this to market now. I think the second piece is the fact that it actually is not only focused on UB and UB students and professors like a lot of other university programs are, but it has a community focus. The fact that we have a number of startups who are in the community, who are building businesses, who are not necessarily students and professors, I think is really special, because sometimes universities feel like there's this moat around them and you can't access it from the community lens. And I feel like our organization and our team does a great job of going out and finding those startups as well. And then I'd say the last piece that's really exciting is the fact that Cultivator is just a small part of it. Yeah. There's the larger startup ventures team, the larger business and entrepreneur partnerships team, which has tech transfer, and it has grants, and it has lab space, and it has an incubator, and there's all these other pieces that come together to help support what we're doing at Cultivator. So it's been a really exciting last couple of weeks and months for me to really dive deeper into what that looks like and how we can create that flywheel, starting at UB and partnering with all the other incredible organizations in Buffalo.
Yeah, and the best part is none of this competes. It all can fit together, right? It can all be stitched together to create that supportive environment that we've been talking about. Now, of course, these companies need talent. They need talent. And I think, Jesana, M&T is really, it's been in the news a lot for the Tech Hub and the investments around Seneca One, but I don't think a lot of people know how intentional M&T's been about investing as early as 5th grade in creating programs aligned to accelerate STEM talent. Share with us a little bit about the programs you've developed, why you believe it's important that a corporation invests that early into the talent pipeline. Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so as I shared, I've been with the bank now 3.5 years. And when I first joined, we had our college internship program, we had our post-grad program, and these were very successful cornerstones of our junior talent pipeline. However, we are a community bank, and we are here embedded in downtown Buffalo, literally tallest building in all of downtown Buffalo. And so when the conversation came around to how else might we engage our talent, the thought came to me immediately of how are we working with our middle schoolers, how are we engaging with high schoolers, and what is their perception of tech? And so we did some research with Tech Buffalo, the Buffalo News was a part of this as well, trying to understand the mindset of youth, young adults, and then more seasoned folk alike, of how they were seeing themselves in tech, those perceived barriers to engaging, and what things will be needed for them to understand that there are roles like mine in this industry, that there are coding-esque roles, there are supporting roles, there are team leads who are not doing any look of coding in that role for the industry. And so from that, disseminating it, understanding that the true tenets of the tech industry are collaboration, teamwork, and innovation. Those are things that youth, young adults alike can understand very easily. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, that's a way that we can tap you in to get involved with tech. And so from there, we started to push into schools, knowing that there's not as much investment in tech education, not because there's no desire to, but because we are all tapped for resources in different ways. But M&T being a corporation that has the will and drive to do so, we did. And so we've been pushing into 5th through 8th grades, bringing them to our tech hub, pushing into their classrooms, hosting summer camps with like Buffalo Prep, going into after school programs to teach kids how to code using Raspberry Pis or Scratch or other block-based coding, sometimes actual coding, which they're like making little songs on these Arduino things. They like to go to a little star, among other things. But thinking about how we build on top of that for high schools. So as I shared, if you don't get engaged with someone as early as 5th grade, they are starting to think about what they can and cannot do, and then already put up those blockers. I know. My mom tried to get me involved with STEM. I said, this is not for me. Get me out of here, Lily. I'm in with the arts. But high school is another time for us to change those perspectives. And so by bringing kids to our tech hub, putting them in front of other Western New Yorkers or other Buffalo public school graduates, if they are from those schools as well, helps us shift and switch that. And so from our Coders Clubs, we've launched a high school internship program. And it's truly like the gold star of my time at M&T, because we're seeing kids come to us, engage with us. We're paying them over the summer for their time and engagement to essentially learn and explore and align their interests in arts with tech and music with tech, entrepreneurship with tech. And we're starting to see now those students return to us in our college programs. And so it all works to, one, build the grapevine, because if you teach one person, they will then teach another person. And so even those students that we know are not probably going to go into computer science, they still now know the depth and breadth of opportunities in tech, and they're telling their friends. I know because we had 11 students last year in our high school internship program. We have 20 this year. Applications last year were around 30 for the program. We had over 80 applicants for a summer program, only hiring 20 students.
Holy cow.
Thank you. This is work that I'm not doing alone. I do have a team, and they are fantastic. But there is clearly demand, interest from both the youth side and the educator side. Corporations and nonprofits, if they have the ability to, just have to open the door and create this space. And if you need someone to talk to about how you do that, I am here, because the motto is not something that we're gatekeeping. If we continue to share and build out our community, then we will see our communities thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of what, Jesana, you're talking about is also the opportunity to tell the story of tech and entrepreneurship and innovation in younger ages and younger grades. And I want to talk a little bit, Lauren, you and I had a great conversation about storytelling, and then we are going to open it up to Q&A with the audience. But, you know, one of the questions I asked you is, what stories did you hear about Buffalo that inspired you to come back? And also, like, what could we be doing better when it comes to telling our story? Because as you can tell from Jesana, like, that story really matters. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been in a number of different ecosystems. I came here directly from Austin, Texas, and I think Austin has a great brand as this startup ecosystem. I've built in New York City and Raleigh and Chicago, and also from Black Women Talk Tech's perspective, we have chapters and conferences around the world. So I've seen a huge gamut of how ecosystems come together. I think the one thing that I love about Buffalo is that we're humble, but I think that also we need to really start shouting from the rooftop about all the things that are happening here. Every time I speak to someone who's not in Buffalo about why I'm moving back and the things that are happening here, their jaws just hit the ground. They have no idea all of the incredible initiatives that are happening here. And when you look at something like Austin, it has a ton of ambassadors. They're just going out and just saying how great it is, because that brings funding and that brings other entrepreneurs, and that changes the perception of the city. And Buffalo actually is like walking that walk. So I feel like really being able to go out and shout from the rooftop of all the incredible things that are happening here is going to help continue to position Buffalo as this incredible startup ecosystem.
Yeah, yes. Well said. And I think we have a community of great storytellers, but it's all about how do you turn that volume up? How do you turn that volume up? All right, Dan, the last question is coming to you, because I think when I met Dan and he shared his story, that's how I understood that the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, is actually decades old, because he talks about 2000, late 2000, back in the day. So, but we've also talked a little bit about like stacking wins and how important that is from a storytelling perspective. So just share your perspective on that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, it's not always a straight line and straight up. And, so I think it's been, as I was going through the story, looking at, a time when, and even when there was Eric and Cinecore and EdgeNet and all these other things back in the late 90s, there wasn't a ton of stuff there. I think, maybe the community didn't understand it as much, the government didn't understand it as much. And so there wasn't as much support or enthusiasm around it. And, so we've kind of come from that area, went into where, a lot of focus on startups, a lot of focus on what, what's happening out there and what we could go and do and build. And tech is interesting, unlike, maybe a manufacturing where you have to build a building and you have to do all this stuff. The late 2000s, early 2010s, it was really, all you really need is a laptop and you can create billions of dollars of value. And, you can do that from anywhere. And if we could build the right community and have others that, want to be here and do that, we could just do that ourselves, right? But fortunately, as time's gone on, there's been other programs. Like I said, there was Z80 Labs, there was 43North, started a little after that. You have Cultivator, you have all these other, Launch New York, all these programs, and I'm missing others, so don't yell at me. But at least I don't know the full list, right? I can't recite the whole list, but there's all this focus on it now, and it was nice that we really looked at it as a community and said, okay, this is a way for us to proceed and into the coming decades and be relevant again and do all this stuff and not kind of wait and sit back for a silver bullet or wait for the government to come save us or whatever it is. You can't wait for that stuff. You just have to go and do it and then hope the rest come and catch up. So I think seeing that, and then obviously as we've had some success on the startup side and you start seeing momentum, and it's more acceptable to kind of go and work for those, quit your job where you're making really good money, that's very secure, and you can work there forever. You can go do this thing that may be dead in 2 weeks, but at least you have a good time. But it's okay, that other company will still be there, and you can just go back to work, right? And and I think that's the main thing. I always said the worst thing that could happen is that I have to go back and get a real job, which is terrifying, but that is like, That's how I motivate myself. So yeah, I think we've stacked up a lot of these wins, and now with the foundation, we have a lot of money, and we can really control the destiny in terms of we know what needs to happen. We know the areas that have been underinvested in, and we can go and fix those. And so it's really encouraging to see that. And I'm a big funder and supporter of Say Yes, Dave Rust and the folks over there. And so seeing that program that isn't a tech-focused program, but it's more of like, let's help students going through the Buffalo school district, help, and there's all these other programs that are there now. It's not just we're going to fund you in your college. It's here's all this stuff so we build better people, get them through the process, get them to school. So we need all of these programs, the social programs, the tech programs, and when you have all of those bases covered, you can start really seeing kind of the summation of all that, which is great.
Those lightning strike moments.
Yep.
So yeah, with that, I want to open it up to questions because I feel the energy in the room, and I think there are some questions out there. So let's see. I see a hand raised. I see Scott, and I see a microphone coming down.
Thank you all for your comments. It's been an enjoyable conversation. Dan, this question is for you regarding Radial Ventures. Down the road, do you envision the venture studio raising a venture fund to further invest in the companies you mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty is we, in a way, we have the liberty to go down a certain path and expand where we need to, right? So we're learning, we're seeing what the community needs, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely a future where, we're building, and we want to start raising more funding, because the more funding we have, the more ideas we can, work on in parallel. And so I think the more of that we want to do, is only the better. So yeah, going out, raising a fund, I think everything's on the table, and if we're successful, we're going to have a lot of different options on things we're going to go do. So yes, hopefully we get to the point where we're like, okay, we spun all these companies out, we have Series A, Series B companies, and we should raise a fund to start investing in these as well, right? And bring in more capital. Not only give local community people access to those deals, but how do we bring in capital from outside, which is another major thing that we should be doing and need to do.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much, first of all, because it's an amazing opportunity for someone like me. I'm a second year UB STEM MBA student. I'm set to graduate next month.
Woo!
Yeah, thank you. So this is like a perfect opportunity for me, but my question is to you, Dan. When you're looking to start a company, say, because you essentially have an idea in your mind, and it's essentially a brainchild, and worked on it for a couple of months or years per se, but when you're looking to hire a co-founder, what are some of the things that you look at, right? Because they have to share the same vision, the same values. So it's very hard. In my perspective, I feel like it's very hard to look for someone who shares the same perspective or same vision as you. So what are some of the things that you look at when you're hiring a co-founder?
Yeah, it's we always say it's like it's dating and getting married all within a very short amount of time. So it's really tough. So, I mean, really the process is working together for a period of time. That's the only way you're really going to understand. I'd say if you're looking for a co-founder, you need to make sure that initial founding team is covering all bases in terms of skill sets, right? So if you're really good at a set of things, you need to bring in other people that aren't as good or good at all at those things, but they're really great at other things. And if you have all of that covered, then you're in a good spot. The issue is when you're very heavy in one side, light on other areas, and then you run into trouble that way. But the other reality is, like most marriages, you're probably going to have issues and break up at some point with your co-founders. So that's the other, statistically, that's going to happen. So,
Lauren, is there
so prepare for the divorce, not the marriage, I guess.
Lauren, is there anything you'd like to add based on your experience?
I would agree with everything that Dan said. Anyone who knows me knows I love a good book recommendation, and a good book is called The Co-Founder's Handbook. It's something that I recently read and wish I had 10 years ago before I went down the co-founder journey. It'll give you literally step-by-step guide of how to find people, how to vet them, how to work with them. So I definitely recommend that.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Samantha Schlein. I work at Ingram Micro, and we're moving downtown, which I'm personally very excited about. Yay. So my question is, well, Ingram itself is a Fortune 50, and we're a tech company in Buffalo. How do we get more involved in how we're building Buffalo from the tech perspective? I feel like right now we're not that involved, and there's other companies here that want to be more involved. Sounds like there's an amazing framework at M&T. Can you kind of shed more light from like a tactical side of it?
Well, I will say that the corporate connectivity pillar is exactly about providing opportunities for Ingram and other companies to get more involved in the startup and tech ecosystem. So that is like the perfect question that you could ask. And so I'd love to connect with you personally, but there's also a bunch of other assets here within the ecosystem that I'm sure would love to plug you in. And I will mention, Ingram's been a wonderful supporter of women in tech. I know we have some folks that worked on women in tech here and have probably attended women in tech. Yes. But you know, I'm sure there's opportunities to engage with UB. I think, like Jesana said, she'd be happy to share a bit of M&T's playbook about how to engage on the talent side. And of course, the Tech Buffalo team, married to the intro here this evening, have lots of opportunities to engage as well. So, but that question that you're asking gets to the very heart of why corporate connectivity is so essential and important. Anyone else? I'm not supposed to actually answer the question, sorry.
I think you answered the question. Well, Sarah, it definitely is about corporate connectivity, but finding those like small pockets of groups that are definitely doing this work. I think about like the Western New York Tech and Manufacturing Coalition that's out here. There's a group that 716 Ministries was leading at one point around workforce development, and so tapping into those areas would also give you connectivity to folks on all broader sense, and then also understanding what they might be planning beyond their immediate areas, because we were doing partnerships with folks in healthcare, social services, so on and so forth.
And just showing up to events,
Yes.
I think is good. Just show up and wave. You know, that's a good way to start too.
Also, wait, sorry, real quick. I don't want to disparage Ingram's development programs and things. They do a lot for their employees, but I did just want to see how we could just be more involved in Buffalo.
No, I think that's absolutely the right question, and that's what's so important, having, I can't see unfortunately because of the lights, but I think it's important to have rising leaders from companies showing up here and saying, raising their hands and saying, how do I get involved? Because it is that next generation of leaders that are going to shape the priorities of the companies that exist here in Buffalo. And at the end of the day, it's really important for companies to be driving strategy, both from a talent perspective and also the startup perspective. So it's a great question. Thank you for raising your hand and asking it.
What was the hardest part about making a company?
It's a great question. Lauren, Dan?
It's a lot of them.
A lot.
I think I may have. So I think generally the hardest thing for people is making the jump fully into it, right? It's a lot of people will start a company, and it's kind of a hobby, and you know, like, okay, I'm starting a company, I'm playing startup, okay, it's great, but there's a point where you have to fully commit to it, and I think that is the point that most people don't fully make the jump, right? And unless you fully commit to it, the odds of success are pretty much zero. So yeah, it's when you're ready to go, you think this is gonna work, you have to take a leap of faith, like you can't overcalculate, you can't try to remove all the risk, you just have to jump and hope, you know, you build the airplane before you hit the ground, so.
And hopefully you'll be starting a company someday.
Yeah. And I would say the hardest part is similar to that last question, is finding the right people. So make sure that if you're going to start something with someone, you have the right partners, you have the right team members, you have people who are around you, who are advising you and helping you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to tell other people your idea, because you never know where that's going to go. So I would definitely say make sure that you're surrounded by people who believe in you, believe in your idea, and see the long-term vision and are willing to go there with you. Great question.
I'm going to direct my question to Jesana, because you mentioned that you were an arts kid. Yeah. And so I'm curious about how you see intersections between tech and the creative community here in Buffalo, and how can our creatives get involved with what's happening in the world of tech?
Yeah, so just last year, I engaged in actually, it was an AI simulation thing where the person leading the activity had myself and the students in my internship program building, drawing virtual worlds, because I guess when Meta does all its things, it looks to designers and developers essentially to create real life experiences in the 3D format and 3D setting. And so when we're thinking about ways that our creatives can get more involved here, it's essentially just helping the folks in the tech industry see how they can build these virtual experiences with the arts. I also think about, I went to a Van Gogh exhibit. It's lovely, immersive. There were pictures of Van Gogh drawings in 3D, and also with movement-based type things. And so you could really see his self-portraits and the sunflowers and everything else in real time, as if you were actually there. So I don't think tech and the arts are that far off from each other. Actually, we're kind of converging right now in this real life moment. And so maybe the question should be the opposite of how is tech pursuing the arts, because I think the arts are already pursuing tech.
Yeah, it's interesting. They talk about STEM versus STEAM and the connectivity with arts, and we think about coding. Eric and I have had this conversation. Everyone goes through art class. Coding should be the same way. There's a really creative component to that as well, the coders in the audience. So thank you for the question. Other questions?
Hi, I was curious about how much, well, I haven't heard the numbers of how much are you investing into this? What do you expect for success metrics?
Are you talking specifically about Radial Ventures or more generally?
Yeah, specific to Radial Ventures, but I think also to the 43North Foundation itself. How much money are we talking?
You want to kick it off with Radial Ventures?
Yeah, so right now, we allocated about $20 million into Radial Ventures, to where, our goal is to, at least 10 years, but be able to take that capital and put it towards building new companies that will then go, grow, exit, and replenish it, right? So our goal is, it's not a one and done. We're trying to build this kind of evergreen model of building company in the same way 43North does, and has funded the foundation. The goal for us is to build big companies, build successful companies, be able to reap the economic benefits of it, and help fund what we're doing. As I mentioned as well, we're not, I think as time goes on, we'll look at bringing in other forms of capital, whether it's venture capital or others, to help accelerate what we're doing. And so that's what we're looking at. But yeah, our mandate is, how are we creating more companies, more jobs, and more big liquidity events that helps the economic positions of people here in Western New York.
Yeah, and I think on the talent side, we're looking at deploying over $1 million this year. Corporate connectivity and storytelling, we're shaping out what that support will look like. And I think the important part when you think about the foundation too is we've been very intentional about thinking about how the foundation sustains itself. And so it's not only the 43North companies that are successful, but it's also how we're looking at Radial Ventures and the stakes you can take in those companies that are successful, and how you take those proceeds and continue to grow the pot, that philosophy of abundance concept that was talked about, and how we continually deploy more funds within the community.
I had a question actually for Lauren. And so Lauren, you are someone who has lived in other places, experienced a lot of things in other places. I'm wondering what you wish would be different in Buffalo as it relates to our tech ecosystem.
Oh, good question. I think similar to what I said previously, it's really about promoting and shouting out about what Buffalo is doing, honestly. I think that's going to attract the resources that I think Buffalo needs to continue to grow and build. But one of the things I've been really impressed with is the public-private partnership that happens here, and the way that it happens and that it grows over time. Coming from Texas, which is a state that has a very large separation between public and private, you can see where the dips start to happen, right? Where if, as an individual, I'm not holding that community up, then it falls apart. And so one of the things that I've really been attracted to here at in Buffalo is the fact that there is the city and the state engagement, and there is a larger ecosystem of partners kind of working together to build this up. But like I said, I think it's just about, it's branding, it's perception. It's like, how do you change the perception of what people think Buffalo is in order to tap into some of the larger opportunities there?
I want to thank everybody for the questions tonight. We're running a little bit short on time, but of course the conversation is going to continue after this with the bar and the food, and it's really, first Voices of Vision had a party vibe. That's what we're intending to see upstairs. But I want to close out with one question, 30-second answers for the panel. You know, this is Voices of Vision, so I'd like to hear, Jesana, we're going to start with you. What is your vision for Buffalo's future, specifically the startup ecosystem?
Ooh, I love this. So the startup ecosystem, I see a vision in which all folks in Buffalo know how proximate they are to entrepreneurship in this ecosystem. They are engaged, they are advocating for each other, and supporting one another.
Dan?
I think mine is, and I think Bill uses this a lot, becomes a community of abundance, and it's less scarcity mindset, more abundance mindset. It's more, creation of companies. It's more collaboration between startups and corporates. I think it's just more of that, and create, for me personally, it's, are we creating new and exciting startups, and being able to, retain people, attract people to this area. And so, yeah, that's the vision long term and why I'm here.
Yeah. Lauren?
Yeah, I would love for Buffalo to be one of the first cities people mention where they're talking about the best startup hubs or ecosystems.
Absolutely. And that's worthy of a round of applause. All of those answers are. I think so much of what you touched on tonight are the things that the foundation deeply cares about. And so, my hope coming out of this evening for each of you is that, when we talk about element one, that talent, talk to Jesana. If you're a company that is really interested in understanding how you engage earlier in the tech talent pipeline, she is the person to chat with about the program she's built with her team. An amazing rising leader. We were so fortunate. I was lucky to work with Jesana a couple years ago. So fortunate you're a leader in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And
think about on the other side of things, element two, right? It's those more startups. So Dan, if you guys have a company, an idea for a company, you want to learn more about Venture Studio, contact Dan. His LinkedIn profile is up there or was up there. He's your guy. He's got an incredible team.
Yeah. If you can spell my last name, you can find me.
We talked a lot about corporate connectivity that touches everyone up here. And then, Lauren, from an ecosystem building perspective, for folks who have questions about just want to hear about what inspired you to come back to Buffalo and how we can share your story. Let's talk to Lauren and let's keep the conversation going. And, I'm so privileged to be in a position to lead the 43North Foundation. It truly, we are at a moment in time when it is beyond inspiring to see each of you in the audience and feel this energy and this deep sense of caring and compassion for the startup ecosystem and making sure it not just sustains, but it accelerates and it continues to thrive, knowing the impact that it can have on not just this generation, but those that move forward. So I want to thank each of you for coming tonight. And for those of you that are looking for just a really simple way to stay engaged and stay involved, in the middle or the back page of your Voices of Vision magazine, scan these QR codes. These are 6 amazing newsletters that will keep you totally in the loop on all that's going on. within the startup ecosystem. And as a continuation of the first Voices of Vision and this Voices of Vision, both Aileron and Leadership Buffalo will be hosting a series of conversations around community stewardship. And they have one of 4 panel discussions coming up on June 18th. You'll find this quarter print in your packet this evening. Make sure you scan the QR code for more information. So finally, I'd like to thank this incredible group of panelists. I'd like to thank Mary Ruel, who kicked us off this evening, Tom Wiley, Bill Maggio, thank you for your comments. And of course, great events like this don't happen by accident. A big thank you to the Buffalo News team, the Burchfield Penney for hosting us, Connolly Studios, and to each of you in the audience. To this next generation of rising leaders, the future is in our hands, and I have never been more optimistic. And so before we wrap up and continue the conversation upstairs, I want to introduce one more incredible leader, Tiffany Gaines, the curator of community and collaborative exhibits here at the museum.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you to our incredible panelists and to Sarah. Let's give them one more hand for a great conversation. My name is Tiffany Gaines, and I am the curator of community and collaborative exhibitions here at the Burchfield Penney Art Center. And throughout the evening and throughout this conversation, I have been reminded of the incredible overlaps between art and technology, the importance of collaboration, creativity, problem solving, functionality, and how important it is to expose the next generation to these areas and how intrinsic both tech and arts are to our everyday lives. So much of the 43North Foundation's work is about investing in change makers and organizations that help us build something sustainable. And here at the Burchfield Penney, we're dedicated to supporting and elevating the work of Western New York artists, not just in showing their work, but in cultivating an ecosystem that sustains them and contributes to the arts and culture community through collaborations, through projects, and through working with other organizations that do similar work in the community. Whether you're in tech or in the arts, it's vital for all of us to be an active participant in making Buffalo the place that we envision it to be. We all have platforms, unique perspectives, talents, and skills that can be used as agents for meaningful change. And as long as we're open, empathetic, and willing to listen to each other, we have the power to shape the city into what we always talk about and hope that it can be. We need to continue to embrace this abundance mindset that we heard so much about today, and remember that this is a city with a bright future where ideas grow off the ground and we can continue to expand what's already here and to support the talent that exists and will continue to come here in the years to come. So let's continue this conversation, whether upstairs over drinks and refreshments or in the galleries just outside the auditorium, where we have 3 new exhibitions on view. One of those exhibitions is our annual gala exhibition, which features the work of over 80 diverse Western New York artists, and is our largest annual fundraiser and another way to continue celebrating, cultivating, and supporting the work of our local artists here in Western New York. So thank you all so much for coming. Please stick around for the conversation and to see the exhibitions, and have a great night.